Hello guys, and welcome back to another video. Today we're continuing again. We're going to do a summer 2021, our 5 highlights of the season. I've been very weird with what to do with my content sometimes when it comes to seasonal stuff. I've been very consistent with going over the start of the season and going through the things of what I will watch. But, you know, I think I'll finally stay on theme, keep on doing 5 signature shows that I think are really good and hidden gems, because that's generally why I watch seasonal anime. You know, sometimes I find something that I wouldn't have watched otherwise, and it's like, damn, this is good. And, you know, I don't think any season is really an exception to this. With that being said, I should get into my top 5. But honorable mentions, I think this is a really good season, so I just want to give quick words to the few shows that are good but not good enough to be highlighted. First is Girlfriend, which is, you know, it's kind of like Rent-a-Girlfriend, kind of cheesy in that respect. I actually like this one a lot more. I think it's a bit more funny in that degree. So yeah, if you like that show, Girlfriend, this. And if you didn't, but you think subtle things will make it better for you, then you may want to check out this as well. Nighthead 2041. It's an interesting full CGI show that definitely does full CGI pretty well. And it has a somewhat psychopath-ish type of, I guess, plot and story to it. It's set in the future. The world functions different to the world we know, and in this case there's psychics, and they're pretty much like discouraged unless you are on the police force. Then you're okay to be a psychic. It's a little weird, and there's definitely a lot to it, but I think this is a pretty good one as well. Remake, it's a water polo, right? No, I'm tripping. I forgot what it is. Soccer but in water. I'm tripping on what the sports name actually is. Goddamn, it sucks, but you know, that's what it's about. I'm probably showing a little bit of clips so you know what I'm actually referring to. I think it has pretty good character dramas, and you know, all the characters has a few cheesy jokes which kind of stink, but besides that, there's a lot of, you know, good things to it. It's not my mappa, and yeah, it has that bit of quality to it with the animation wise. Tokyo Revengers, this cannot qualify because this is actually a spring show. It's just going to seemingly be a long-running show that I don't think will be taking that much breaks. You know, time will tell in this case, as they haven't, you know, revealed any like DVD sales in Japan to tell us about how it will run over TV-wise. But this is a good show. I usually don't like the genre show it comes from, but I'm liking this one, so that does say a lot, just coming from that. As well, we have Drugstore Another World. It's an isekai, and I don't hate it, you know? Fair enough. Most isekai are quite easy to hate, so if you get a pass, good job, isekai. You did something. This one's very unimpressive, but I think it's still watchable. If you're an isekai Phil, go for this one. The Detective is Already Dead. This one, I was kind of surprised, but, you know, the detective is already dead by episode 1, technically. It dies off screen, and it actually goes through a lot of, like, letting us be not clued in onto the story itself and let us figure out things as we go through the rest of the episodes. I think that's actually very interesting. Its detective stuff is actually kind of cool. I really like what it's doing. And I'm surprised by it. I'm actually quite surprised by it. I think it's pretty good. And, of course, honorable mentions to second seasons. Oh god, you know, they are carrying this season a whole lot for me. Of course, Maid second season. I'm a fan of first season, so second season coming out, hell yeah. I'm really loving it. And, you know, I was a little bit sus on the character, you know, it definitely could have been a bad case. A lot of people complained to a certain degree for the obvious reasons I'm not going to reiterate, but I really like the dramas with it. I really like the type of conflict the character has, and I really want to see them delve more into it as the season goes on. But the starting few episodes on that were actually very goddamn good, and otherwise it's pretty much just Dragon Maid, just with a new character. And Higurashi, goddamn, Sotsu is fucking amazing. That shit is epic. I'm hyped as fuck to see it come on. But that is it. We've gone through the honorable mentions. Now it's on to the top 5. But I'll be doing 4 of them. Only 4. And I have someone special to give us number 5. I wanted to toss it up since I didn't particularly like the show, but people have a lot to say on it, so passing it over to him.
Sonny Boy offers anime fans a unique experience and one that the community has not seen in a long time. In this segment, I'd like to go over a few things that I think make it so interesting and something that I think will be the best anime of the summer 2021 anime season. To really do justice to Sonny Boy, we have to kind of break up the analysis into 2 parts. First, we'll address the aesthetic qualities of Sonny Boy, and then we'll kind of talk about the narrative patterns that it's embodying. To discuss first the aesthetics, for me, this is one thing that gives Sonny Boy an edge over a lot of other modern anime. What it's done so effectively is it's kind of revived the 90s style of animation, which we see primarily in its use of block coloring. So instead of using different gradients and shading, what we see then is that these large portions of bodies are just blocked in with the color, and these kind of come together to make the foreground. This is then contrasted with a kind of traditional anime background, and I think the difference between the two is very reminiscent of the 80s and the 90s. Essentially, Sonny Boy is a 90s anime in modern clothing, by which I mean it uses similar techniques and kind of captures the same aesthetic, but it does so using modern production value, and so everything's a lot more crisp, the lines are much better defined, there's not as much fuzziness as there was back then. And while these are traits I do think is positive, I think finding the combination between a modern and a classic aesthetic offers something really unique that we haven't seen in a long time. One anime that I think comes close to imitating this style would be Tatami Galaxy from 2010, but even then, it's still leaning more to the side of the moderns, whereas in Sonny Boy we do find a much more accurate representation of stuff in the 90s, for instance. But it's not just this kind of recapturing of the 90s aesthetic that makes Sonny Boy so visually unique. I think it utilizes a lot of interesting effects to convey different parts of the story. The show also kind of leans on interesting visual effects to really express the extent of the character's powers. For instance, in the first episode, when Asakaze uses his power in rebellion against the student council for wanting to manage and restrict the use of powers, he has this weird ability that essentially shatters light, and the way that is expressed is, on the one hand, we do see the different glass in the show break, but then the very perspective, the very camera angle starts to kind of distort and shatter in a very interesting way. And again, just this kind of different effect that they use, as opposed to just showing things happening in the world, again, just adds a different layer, adds more texture to the show, and creates a much more interesting experience for the viewer. We also do have CGI in the show, such as when the student council kind of approaches Nozomi, asking her to, take the cell phone and abide by the rules. She outright kind of rejects that, but that's a kind of narrative point we'll talk about later. We see like the carousels in CGI, and I think for a lot of people CGI is kind of cutting corners, but again I feel like this is a very pointed thing that the kind of anime has done to just create more textures within the show, and again building on that kind of interesting aesthetic visually. And I think taken together this offers, again, as I've been saying, a very unique experience and one that I don't think we will ever see again. Unless, of course, this is met with massive success, and then hopefully future anime will then follow in its footsteps and try to create a more interesting experience for viewers visually, because I think, by and large, a lot of anime has kind of just been focusing in on a certain style artistically, which is great to really refine that and develop that, but I think it's also important to kind of step outside of just the norms and the typical drawing conventions to really experiment and just see how you can use more unique animation patterns or artistic styles to tell your story in more unique ways. Another dimension of the kind of aesthetics to Sonny Boy is its sound design. Now, for a lot of people, myself included, it can be a little overbearing. We hear a lot of different ruffles throughout the show, a lot of different crumbles, all these different textures to really bring the world to life, and I really appreciate the little details they put into it. Music is very subtle, if ever. I like how pulled back it is. In place, we get a lot of sound design, as I just mentioned, and while it is very loud and overbearing, especially in that first episode, it does seem to kind of pull itself back a little bit by the second. But again, I just think that even if you don't love it, you have to appreciate how they're trying to build this world through means other than pure dialogue or info dumping. It's through these weird visual quirks or through these different auditory things. The more information they can give us about the world without having to directly tell us, to me, the better the world is constructed. At least there's more for me to sink my teeth into without having to just be spoon-fed it through dialogue. But speaking of dialogue, I think I'd like to address just a few components of the narrative to also express why I think Sonny Boy is a rather remarkable show. The kind of narrative pattern that follows is known as in media res, which is this kind of idea that you start in the middle of the action. I'm using action rather lightly here, but essentially at the beginning of the show, we're met with a school that has seemingly been teleported, we don't know what happened to it, outside of the real world. And we also know that these kids are now coming about superpowers. They know nothing of the world. All we know as the viewer is that we've just been thrown in the show in the middle of all of this. Now this is a kind of narrative pattern that a lot of anime use. For instance, a lot of people kind of miss that Naruto Shippuden starts in media res. In the very first episode of Shippuden, we see Naruto and Sakura and some other character, which we find out is Sai, kind of searching through the tunnels and eventually coming upon Sasuke. And we don't actually see this happen until episode 51, but again, they kind of start it there, and I think this is effective for kind of giving viewers something to look forward to. Then in Naruto, we kind of get it brought back to the past, we see Naruto returning to the village, and then we slowly build up over 50 episodes to return to that moment. Sonny Boy is taking a slightly different trajectory with the in media res. Instead of introducing us in the middle of the story and then going back to the past to start filling things out, it seems to just keep walking forward and slowly building the world, and I think this is more effective. I think the reason for throwing the viewer into the narrative, without any, introductions to the world or the characters, is to kind of mirror the confusion of the characters, because they also don't know what happens. They've just been zapped out of reality, out of space-time so far as they can tell. Time is stopped essentially. When things are destroyed, they come back to their full construction after a while. They seem to exist in a space or dimension completely separate from the real world, and they're confused. They also know that they're coming about powers and how to use them. All they know is that they need to come together as a collective and try to manage this and try and, sort out the rations and so on and so forth. So again, this is a very pointed kind of intended effect by the directors, which I really appreciate. I also love a lot of its kind of show not tell mentality. We find this perhaps best so far in episode 2, when the blue flames start to be an issue. People start to just do things and then suddenly, boom, ignites into blue flames and destroys the object. Initially, they accuse another member of the school as causing this, and this is, they think, a consequence of one of her powers. And they use this as an excuse to kind of cast her out. But we find out throughout the course of the show that it's not actually someone's power, but it's actually just a general consequence of taking what is not yours. And when they only find this out through kind of trial and error, it's never so explicitly told to us. And I really like how it's through these little means that they start to flesh out the world and the powers. They never have these long sequences of, this is the power system, it goes like this, this, and this. These are the criteria that are sufficient and necessary for its activation, and just info dump you. No, it's much more subtle than that, and I love it. Of course, it's only 3 episodes long. I have high hopes for how it's going to develop this kind of power system. I'm very interested in the mystery of how the school got to where it is and how they kind of can move outside of the initial boundary. How they will come together as a collective, kind of structure, a political structure, to organize themselves to move more efficiently and to kind of maintain the kind of peace that they need to really move beyond this and escape this presumably problematic living condition. But that's my thoughts on Sonny Boy. Thank you, Nooberton, for having me on. My name is Doofy, and I'm signing off. Peace.
Alright, we are back. He said many of great words. Probably better explanations than I will give for all of my picks. He's definitely showing off in that respect, but I'm happy for him to have been on, and we're going to get into the other 4 picks. We will start off with my number 4, which is the Duke of Death and his Maid. Now, I was kind of surprised on this. First, I didn't know it was going to be a full CGI show until really editing one of my videos for a seasonal anime and be like, oh, okay, it's going to look like this. And usually I'm a bit turned off to CGI shows. A lot of people are extremely complaining about it. I try to be open-minded to a certain degree. Definitely Orange, will do the great stuff. But seeing other studios do it, I'm a little scared. But I think the studio's doing perfectly fine with it. Would I prefer otherwise? I don't know. But, it's a creative decision, which I'm kind of fine with seeing. But honestly, I really do care for the romance. I think it's a very strong one, as rom-com wise. Comedy wise, it stands okay. It's, not the most hilarious thing I've ever seen, but definitely not as dry as a lot of them are to me. I'm very picky when it comes to comedy, so for me to say you are good when it comes to comedy is quite an honor. You know, to be impressive is, you know, a whole bit beyond that, but just being good, which I think this show is, says a lot to it. But as well, I think it's really nice that we have like a couple that it's not like their dynamic is somewhat similar to a lot others, where, you know, they have to be shy and reserved from each other, but that's not because they're hiding their feelings to any degree. No, it's kind of pretty aware, you know, that they like each other. They really want to be a loving couple. This is not, you know, a secret by any degree. They're not trying to hide it like a lot of other, you know, the high school rom-com, oh, I'm shy to come out and say I like this person type deal. No, it's definitely not like that. The reason why they are so reserved is because the Duke himself had been cursed by a witch. And because of this curse, he cannot touch anyone. Any living thing, animal, plant, or human will die upon touch. So pretty much he can't do a crap. He, you know, nothing romantic, intimate in that respect. You have to keep your space, and that is the one factor about it. And, you know, he's been pushed away by even his family. His family really doesn't, you know, go and care for him that much. So, you know, life's kind of pressing for him, but the maid still cares. And that, I think that dynamic's actually, like, you know, very good setup. They don't have to explain why they love each other as much. With the setup they have for it, it's pretty obvious for anyone why they would be, you know, such a loving couple and why you want to root for them. And that's one of the goals of rom-coms. And also being comedic. I honestly think this is a very strong one. I can't wait to see where this one goes. But that's it. We're going on to the third one. And that it's going to be Love Live Superstar. Yep. What did you expect from me? I am absolute Love Live simp. Did you not expect anything else from me? Of course it's going to be on here. And no, this is not a second season, so I think it qualifies. You can watch any Love Live, you know, distinct from any other Love Live. You know, you can jump in at any point you want. And if you particularly like watching seasonal, and you like how, you know, it's easy to digest once a week, you know, one episode, this may be your good chance to go jump in and, you know, see if you like Idol. Because all of it's kind of the same, not going to lie, but if you like it, you like all of them. And if you don't like it, you pretty much don't like all of them. So it could be a good chance for you guys to figure it out. And, you know, I think this is definitely a strong entry for anyone who is coming in new or returning. Returning wise, why, you know, it's distinct is we finally have like a main character that, you know, isn't just like, yay, happy, woo, you know, which I think a lot of them are always the, you know, energetic, happy type. It's big stereotype to have one of the main characters be that, but no, this character has stage fright. So she's just like, shit, I can't even get into the music part of my high school. They won't accept me because, you know, I can't even sing for like, the audition, whatever, I don't know what it's called. And, you know, so she's kind of just like, bruh. It makes it her being a whole lot of a different character from the rest. Most of them are just like, yeah, I'm good at singing, yeah, I'm happy about life, you know, energetic as hell. Now we have this character who seems to be a little bit more serious, high focused, very good and skilled, but has a lot of struggles with actually, you know, going and showing it to people. And I think that dynamic is very good. Probably an easy one to have been tackled, but, you know, they finally did it, so there you go. It definitely gives a lot of new stuff for people who are returning. And then we still haven't seen a lot of the main characters who are going to be in the Idol cast. but the other character is like what it kind of replaces the usual main character of being super energetic, but that's because, you know, they've been determined to do it. They've moved to Japan to do it, and, you know, just very much, you gotta do it, and pushes our main character into becoming an idol. Sadly, I can't say too much on this show. Its airing has been delayed, so I've only been able to see 2 episodes, but I've highly enjoyed what I have seen. The cast is going to be a lot lighter compared to any other Love Live, so you don't have to dedicate yourself to a bunch of characters. Most of them have, I think it's 9, 9, and 10 for the last few Love Lives. This one, I'm pretty sure, is 4 or 5. So, yeah, very easy, very digestible in that respect. When it comes to, you know, having to dedicate a lot to the characters, and I think that will be one of the big strengths of this one, you know, being able to concentrate and settle down pretty easily. I think this has a lot of strengths as a idol show, and will be, you know, a solid one to be in the pool of them. Probably one of the better ones, not gonna lie. And yeah, if you wanted to get into idol, if you felt like trying it, this may be your chance. If you feel like watching them airing, I think this is a good one to go for. Go for it. I highly suggest it. But remember, I'm a filthy, biased, idol-loving filth, alright? Cool. Now we got that out of the way. My number 2 spot for this is something I called immediately. I was like, yeah, I know this is going to be the good shit. And that was the Aquatrope on White Sand. Now, this is I'm pretty sure it's more confirmed at this point. It's a Yuri plot, Yuri romance, hell yeah. It hasn't been confirmed yet, but, you know, it's a little cheeky in the anime, and they're going to do a manga adaptation, and they literally got someone who does Yuri manga art to do this art for its manga. You know, it could be a coincidence, but they, you know, they want talent to that degree. So yeah, it's pretty much expected at this point. I was calling it at the start, yeah, it's definitely probably going to be to that degree. And there's even more promise to it as well, as it got confirmed to be 2 core. So, you know, if you really are only about binging 12 episodes, once it gets 24 it's crazy, then maybe it's easier to get in on it right now before it's too late, before it's 24 episodes. But honestly, I think that is really strong. It's done by a lot of the same producers who have done A Lull in the Sea, and that show was very strong for the fact that it really used all of its like 26 episodes to make a narrative that feels actually very long in a good respect. A very long one that feels like it takes up a lot of time. It takes like a lot of time. It goes through a lot of moments, and I feel this may be able to do the same. I really like, you know, that's going to be able to take its time with developing it, as I don't think a lot of romances, you know, pad out to get a lot of time to build it up. So this is going to help it a lot. And I think, you know, the idea of one of the girls is a failed idol to a certain degree, and has pretty much went to part-time work at the aquarium and helped the other girl with her dreams of keeping the aquarium afloat. It's very interesting, and I really like to see that dynamic go through. It's also very informational. I think the aquarium is actually just a very fun setting to have your anime. You know, you get so bored of the goddamn high schools and stuff, you know, in a lot of cases. And like, I think the aquarium is very nice, as you get to see a lot of the work in there. And they've given a few facts on, you know, fishes and stuff, and I think that's kind of cool. I like this little tidbits of information here and there, you know. It's definitely a fun setting. It's going to have a lot of time to pan out, you know, this romance. And I'm really looking forward to this anime. It's done by PA Works, and, you know, it has a lot of work done by people who did A Lull in the Sea, which, if you have watched A Lull in the Sea, you've probably been like, okay, this got potential, alright, I see. PA works doing the work on it means it's going to look great. It definitely looks better than a lot of the shows that are coming out this season, not going to lie. But yeah, very good. Highly optimistic about this one still. I'm happy that, I wasn't falsely optimistic about it. And now, the final one, the last one I will be talking about in this one, which is a surprise because, as I said, I called it the second pick. I didn't call the first pick, though. I said it may have been okay, but I wasn't really looking forward to it as much as I do now. And this is Remake Our Lives. Now, this is not for everyone to a certain degree. I think the reason it is so strong and such a good show for me is that it's relatable to me. And, it may not be relatable to you. If you are young, because there's definitely young people on YouTube, middle school or high school, if you're watching this, it may not be as relatable. I think this will be more relatable to people, somewhat later in life. If you're in the older end, if you're doing college classes, or if you completed college, this may have some relatability. But also, this is more relatable to people who are on the side of creatives, Obviously, I'm a creative. Look at me. I spend my time making goddamn videos. Clearly, there is a creative bone in my body, which, if you don't have any of that, again, the show won't be as relatable to you. But if those two things qualify, and, this may hit a certain nerve with you, and you may really end up enjoying this show. Concept gets compared a lot to Remake Our Life, and for obvious reason, they both jump back 10 years in the past. In this one, we have our main character, and he pretty much is disappointed where he's gotten off in life. He ended up taking what he perceived to be a very safe route within his life, career-wise, going to a basic college, and learning how to do some simple office work, and, not something he really loved to do, but something he felt he could do, that type of stuff. And, then he loses his job, he's kind of bumming back, he has to go back to his parents' house, and boom, he gets, they spend a lot of time on the first episode. It gotta be a double-length episode, which was nice. And he pretty much gets to see the application for the art school he was accepted into, and he's just sitting there in his room just regretting that, and he's like, damn, I wish I kind of went for it. But boom, he gets time traveled 10 years back randomly, perfectly in time for when he got the acceptance letter. Hey, so you know what he does? He decides, I'm going to go into art school. And honestly, this is what I very much really like about it. I think it's very hard for people, they have to make the decision. They always, in life, you very much get scared off of any sort of art path in most degrees, where it's like, oh, it's such a competitive field, and you'll likely just get rejected and you'll be a bum. There's many, parents who would be like, no, don't do it. No, get a real ass job. Fuck you. Get your engineering degree or something. Fuck off, mate. You ain't doing art, So I think this really, for those people, this could hit to a certain degree. You may want to be jumped. You may want to be in that same position to a certain degree. You may want to, live their life. You may want to remake your life. And I think this is something, very big for a lot of people. If this does not relate to you, then, shit. This may not be that great, but I really like what it's doing in that respect. I really like that, because that's something I think I very much, to some degree, want to do. To some degree, I want to go into videography, work within editing, and, go to school for that. But I am in the same position. I did not go to school for that. I went for something where, you know, I can just get a master's and probably get a job nice and easy, get good pay, like that, right? Same type of boat for me as well. So that's why I say it's relatable in that degree. And this show, it makes me be like, God damn it, I kind of want to ditch it. But, you know, luckily it's not just this blind, oh yes, if you go into art, you know, all the happiness will, you know, happen for you. It's like, that's very much unrealistic to a certain degree. But, you know, there's reasons the fears do exist, because they're fears to be had. And I think the show reflects that as well. You know, at the very start when they're in the school, they're like, only 8 people out of the 100 graduates got a job. So, yeah, you really want to stay here? Huh? You want to stay at this shit? And, you know, I think this also gets to have that bit of realism added to it, because it's made by someone, at least original story, and, you know, everyone who's producing the anime adaptation for it are all people who went through this goddamn path. So, you know, it has that bit of, like, you know, work that's gone into it. People, you know, have this understanding, and, you know, they get to, you know, sink a bit of themselves into it. And I think that's something I really goddamn like about this show. Honestly, this probably would be a masterpiece. There's like one gripe. The ecchi's like a little but every single moment besides that is so goddamn fucking good in this show. It is amazing. I absolutely love it. Oh man, this show I'm really goddamn liking. It's definitely because I don't think any really show will hit in the same way as this one does with its sort of relatability. You know, I think it hits on a spot very well. It's not super specific. I think a lot of people would end up liking it. You know, there's a lot of people in that, I think, group where, you know, they're put between this decision of, like, going for, you know, that desired creative work or just going with a safe choice. For those people, this show may just be for you. And if not, you could still enjoy it. There's a lot of things going into it. And, you know, I really like it. Studio Field's doing it, and I actually, Studio Field does make some pretty good stuff. Very underrated what they do. Really like all the character design and how clean it looks to that degree. And the music for it, great. Loving every bit about it. And, you know, it gets a show in the creative process as well as, you know, they work on productions. It's really nice. It's really goddamn nice. I'm really liking it. But yeah, that's it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you liked special guest. My name is Doofy, going over Sonny Boy. And hope, you know, he did it way better than me explaining his pick. And I tried to do 4 and they were pretty ass. But, you know, hopefully you still liked it. Thank you guys so much for watching and enjoying. I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.